This year's Doctor Who Christmas special is nearly here, promising a rip-roaring adventure across time and space via the mysterious Time Hotel. But just what can we expect from Joy to the World? First of all, as ever, Ncuti Gatwa will be back as the 15th Doctor, following his first Christmas special last year, and of course his first season in the interim. Now this story promises to be something quite special, I think, for him, taking him to places he's not been before, because he's just lost Ruby, albeit temporarily, she's going to be back next year. But yeah, he's kind of dealing with the loss of that, he's alone for the first time. A lot of the interviews and reviews kind of talk about how the episode plays with that and gives Ncuti different stuff to do, kind of shows off different sides to his Doctor, more angry sides perhaps. We know there's going to be a scene where he confronts himself because of some sort of time-wimey thing, where it's like his future self. So I think there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff for Ncuti to get his teeth into here, and this could possibly be his best performance yet. And on the subject of the Doctor is usually never without his sonic screwdriver, and this story will apparently mark the debut of a brand new model that is subtly different to and distinct from the red version we've seen previously in The Devil's Cord and Rogue. It's another red, magenta, orange model, depending on, which picture you look at. There has been a toy version released by Character Options that was available to buy beforehand. So that's nice to have. It's nice to have as a tie-in piece. It's 40 quid, but yeah, it's there for collectors who want that kind of thing. And yeah, I read in one review that Sonic gets quite a lot to do in this episode, which makes sense if you've got a new model to show off. So yeah, looking forward to that. Of course, the Doctor will himself have at least 2 new looks in this story to add to his ever-expanding list of costumes. First of all, the variant of the sort of established leather coat look with the yellow zipped top, whatever it is, and the check trousers. That's his main costume for this story. Of course, there's the dressing gown look as well earlier on in the episode. Maybe more stuff as well, who knows? They're the only ones we've seen, but we know this Doctor loves to dress up in lots of different outfits, so it would not surprise me one jot if there were more. Filling the companion role in this story will be Nicola Coughlan as Joy Al Mundo, which I think translates to Joy to the World in Spanish, but not Italian. There was something like that, where it's one specific language that it translates, to Joy to the World in. But yeah, she's the kind of one-off companion for this story, obviously known from things like Derry Girls and Bridgerton, very well-known actor in her own right, without Doctor Who. And yeah, it's going to be great to see her. She was announced ages ago, I think in autumn of last year when they filmed this story, so it's been a long time coming. The interviews and reviews and stuff talk about how she is, a very outgoing, jolly character on the surface, but there's deeper stuff going on, underneath the surface, and loss and trauma and stuff that she's dealing with. So it's going to be very interesting to see her performance there and how the layers are gradually stripped back and more is revealed about her. Nice to have a one-off companion as well. I can't really remember the last time we had a one-off companion, because we've had Donna in the 60th specials, we had Ruby throughout all of season 1, of course in the Jodie era, Yaz was there throughout at the very least. So I guess maybe the return of Dr. Mysterio was the most recent one where there was a one-off companion, but then Nardole was there as well. Gosh, I can't even think what the most recent one would be where there's been a one-off companion but no full-time companion. If you can think of that in the comments, let me know. As mentioned, this story will be set at the Time Hotel, this futuristic organisation that's got hold of time travel, combined it with the whole concept of a hotel, and hey presto, there it is. This idea basically that you go to this hotel and they've bought up all of the spare rooms from across history from other hotels, so you can go there and travel to the Blitz, or to Mount Everest, or to the far future, or to prehistory, or wherever you like. It's a great concept, very, very on brand for this particular writer, who I'll be getting onto in just a moment. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing, how that is played with and explored. All these different settings. It feels like it's going to be a very expansive story from what we've seen, just hopping around from all these different locations from one to the other. I think we've seen kind of all the main ones so far, the ones I mentioned, the Orient Express as well. And yes, of course, Stephen Moffat is writing this episode back for the second time this year after Boom in Ncuti's first season. So great to have him, back writing a Christmas special for the first time since 2017. Always loved, for the most part, his Christmas specials, particularly 11th Doctor ones. There's something very, very magical and wholesome about them. And you just know it's going to be a very sort of, witty story to begin with, but also kind of have elements of heartbreak to it as well, kind of emotional stuff there alongside the humour. There are going to be a load of Easter eggs and references to Doctor Who more generally, I suppose, but also Moffat's past stories. We've seen that already with things like the newspaper, the timey-wimey the Doctor is holding on the cover of this month's Doctor Who magazine, where it suggests that the duck pond in the 11th hour, the duck pond with no ducks, was actually a portal to 1973 or something, and it kind of ties into this wider idea of the Time Hotel, and that was one of the rooms, I think, or something like that. There's a reference to Prisoner Zero as well on that newspaper. You know, I'm not expecting these references to kind of get developed much further than this, but it's nice to have them there. Of course, one of the biggest references or throwbacks is to Villengard, a kind of a long-running element from the revived series, recently reintroduced in Boom, and then, much like Moffat himself, back for a second surprise appearance in this story. So Villengard was first alluded to by the Ninth Doctor in the Doctor Dancers, the weapon groves of Villengard. It was meant to be some kind of weapons facility. We then visited it in Twice Upon a Time. It was this big planet, and now it's kind of expanded further with Boom this year into the Villengard Corporation, who sell all these weapons and products and war products to, well, all sorts of people who are going to war at different planets and places. We had one example of that with the landmine the Doctor stood on in Boom, and now we have another in the form of this mysterious suitcase, which seems to be the clue to whatever's going on in the Time Hotel. Not too sure how big a role Villengard will play in this story. Some of the reviews kind of seem to make out that it's not a massive element compared to other things, but yeah, it's nice to have it there nevertheless, kind of tying everything together in a nice neat bow. Of course, one of the spokespeople for Villengard in this story is going to be a Silurian. That is something that's been known about for many months, ever since the first clip from the special was released at San Diego Comic-Con in the summer. It was a big surprise then. It's still very nice to know now there's going to be a Silurian in this story. You know, again, I'm not entirely sure how big a role this character will play, but he's played by Jonathan Harris, who was in Sherlock, and I think he's done some other stuff with Moffat in the past, and obviously loads of other roles, and he's brilliant. The glimpse we've had of him already is brilliant as well, where he's sort of saying, oh, the star seed will bloom and the flesh will rise, or whatever it is. Great stuff. In terms of other cast members, it's basically just kind of all the people we've already met in that first preview clip where the Doctor is hopping around. It's unclear at this stage how big a role they're going to have, whether they're literally just in that first kind of montage or whether they kind of play a more prominent role later on. But we've got people like, you know, Basil and Hilda Flockhart, played by Peter Benedict and Julia Watson. We've got Sylvia Trench, played by Niamh Mary Smith. I believe she's the one on the Orient Express. Edmund Hillary, an actual historical figure to do with Mount Everest, played by Phil Baxter. Going to be interesting to see how he is portrayed. And I guess the other guy, Tenzing Norgay, played by Samuel Sherpa Moore, I guess he's like one of his comrades. The other kind of big name or bigger name we have here is Joel Fry, playing Trev Simpkins, who I think is part of the hotel staff, maybe like a security guy or something like that. But yeah, he's going to be great to see in Doctor Who. We also have Steph DeWorley playing Anita Ben. We saw her briefly in the preview clip again when Joy checks into the hotel at the start. And to begin with, it didn't seem like she was going to have a massive role to play. But a lot of the reviews have since kind of drawn attention to her and say how great she is and how she gets some really great stuff to do with Ncuti. So that's very intriguing. And another interesting character, perhaps worth drawing attention to, is Mr. Single, played by Joshua Leese. Is that literally just a guy who is single? Is he going to be paired up with one of our main characters, perhaps Joy or Anita or someone else? Who knows? A lot of the reviews have also drawn attention to the ending of this story, saying it might be a bit controversial, viewed by insensitive by some members of the audience perhaps. It might provoke a few eye rolls, it might be viewed as cheesy by some. All very intriguing. I think there is kind of one prevailing theory that I don't really want to get into here because it seems quite likely to me this is going to happen in some form. But let's just say if you go back and look at what the Silurian character was saying in that preview clip about the starseed and maybe the great significance of that, perhaps in terms of Christmas and the Christmas story, yeah, maybe there's going to be some kind of scene there that would fit that bill. That's going to be very interesting to see how that is executed and how that goes down, if indeed it does end up being true. And last but not least, not something that's going to be in the episode itself, but the Season 2 trailer that we've been promised afterwards, showing us our first glimpse at Ncuti's second season due next year, possibly more details, like more cast details, monster details, maybe a release date or release month. Obviously, we know Ncuti's going to be in it, we know that Varada Sethu is going to be there as new companion Belinda Chandra, we know that Ruby is going to be there in some form as well, in at least some of the episodes, so perhaps she will feature, perhaps some of the unit characters, people like Kate. It would surprise me a lot as well if Anita Dobson doesn't crop up once or twice as Mrs. Flood in the trailer, with one or two new shots or ominous lines from her. Rose Ailing-Ellis as well, who's recently been announced to be one of the guest stars in an episode next year. But otherwise, it'll be great to see some new characters, new guest stars, new monsters, new worlds, and just generally find out a bit more about these stories and about the season, because it does feel like we know very little about it compared to what we knew about this year's season at this point. What are you looking forward to in Joy to the World, and what are your predictions for the episode? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. I'll see you again after the story for a review and also a breakdown of the Season 2 trailer, but otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.